Welcome to this weekend's edition of Feature Scope. I'm Randy Van, and joining us today we have Jon Van Wyk of Sully, and he is going to be the Republican candidate for Iowa House District number 28. And Jon, thanks a lot for stopping by and chatting with us today.
Well, thanks, Randy, for having me.
House District 28, that encompasses, I think, 4 townships in Jasper County: Palo Alto, Fairview, Elk Creek, and Lynn Grove. So that would be Monroe, Reesner, Sully, and Linville, and then it also extends down through Marion and Lucas County, Knoxville, Pleasantville, Harvey, Melcher, Dallas, Bussey, Marysville, Williamsburg. So it's a pretty big district.
Yeah, when you start to get to the more rural areas of Iowa, the geographic boundaries of the districts tend to grow a little bit. But
yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself. We know you run a winery in the Sully area.
Well, I grew up in Oskaloosa and graduated from high school there. After that, I moved to Ames to go to school at Iowa State University. I've got my bachelor's in political science there. I have a master's from there as well in public administration. Later on, around 2006, my wife and I had been commuting to Des Moines, where our jobs were, and so we moved to Clive at that time, and we've been living in Clive for about the last 8 years. We've have a family business, of course, the winery, and we've been producing wine since 2009. We're in all the, major metro Hy-Vees and stuff like that. But in 2010, we had the opportunity to look at a building in Sully. It was owned by the city of Sully, and we knew of the town. We'd grown up in Oskaloosa, and we kind of toured the town and toured the building and decided to move our winery there and kind of make it our final resting place for our family. So it's not just my wife and me and my kids that are going to be moving there. It's also my folks and my brother and his wife. So it's kind of the whole family is migrating to Sully.
So you're in the process of moving down there?
Yeah, we're in the process, okay. Yep. We've been renovating it's an old church that we acquired back in 2011. Took possession of that in around January, and we've been renovating that for the last 3 years. And probably this week, we're hoping that the TTB at the federal level is going to get our license moved over to the new location, and so that kind of increases the need for us to all get moved over here sooner. So I definitely did not move to Sully or District 28 in order to run for office, as some people might assert. This has been long planned, and just when I looked at what districts were around Sully, and because I always knew I wanted to get into state-level politics, hence my background, the educational background. I saw Senate District 14 and House District 28, and had the opportunity to do some research on the candidate or the incumbents that currently occupy those seats, and have had the opportunity to meet Amy Sinclair, and she's representing her district very well, and it's not so much that I'm not philosophically aligned with the incumbent from House District 28, so much as my approach to politics and legislation itself is drastically different than his, and I think that I can bring something to the table that's currently lacking in that House district. So,
okay. Can you elaborate a little bit about the different philosophies there?
Sure. There's a caucus within the Republican Party in the state of Iowa that kind of approaches politics from an all-or-nothing standpoint. They kind of have a zero tolerance, no negotiation, and oftentimes kind of a lack of diplomacy in that as well. And, I think that a certain level of pragmatism needs to be brought to the table when you're dealing with politics, because we do live in the real world, and we have to understand that we're not going to achieve 100% of our objective in one foul swoop. The rights that many of us would assert have been eroding over the years weren't taken away from us overnight, and we're not going to get them back overnight as well. So that's not to say that we don't want to achieve 100% of the objective. It's just we need to be shrewd and tactical about how we approach the issues that we want to promote, and get them accomplished in manageable segments, so that we can, like I said, have a long game, and not have just one play in our playbook.
If elected, what are some of the things you would like to see done or changed? As of course, a pro-life candidate and a pro-gun candidate,
I'm also a United States Marine, and so I kind of grew an interest in firearms, of course, when I was involved with that. And as a NRA certified range safety officer, I kind of have, a more in-depth view of the firearm issue than I think maybe a lot of people do.
Okay.
A lot of people might agree with the reasoning behind the Second Amendment on a philosophical level, but they don't really get into it enough to understand the nuances as well. And so, I think that the state of Iowa took a step in the right direction back in 2011. Well, I guess the law was passed in 2010, but with the shall issue. And I like to continue to see, those types of rights given back to the people and have those rights expanded for law-abiding citizens.
Yeah.
So
I know a county sheriff's office has been, once that took effect, just a lot of people, they've really been issuing those weapon permits at a very high rate since then.
Yeah, in the past 10 years, I've worked in both a corporate environment and a county environment. I actually worked for Story County Sheriff's Office for almost 5 years, and I wasn't a deputy, but I was just working in an administrative capacity. And as many people might know, Story County is more of a liberal county and has a Democratic sheriff. And I know that at least from his perspective, it wasn't a positive change when it came to moving from may to shall issue. But that's one of the topics where I would disagree with him. So
okay, I would assume based on what you're saying, you consider yourself a fiscal conservative.
Definitely a fiscal conservative. I think that we've kind of lost control and lost a vision of what the purpose of government is. And of course, when you give the government more power, the government's going to need more money to exercise that power. So it's not so much that we need to target lowering taxes and lowering the amount of money the government has. It's that we need to draw back the scope of what our government does for us and kind of approach it from a more limited government standpoint. And the smaller the government is, the less money it will need to serve that more limited role. So lowering taxes is a byproduct of that.
What about the gas tax? We hear a lot about that. What's your issue on that?
Well, it does seem to be a hot topic right now. And, one of the things I think that we have to recognize as Republicans is that not all taxes are bad. We have to pay taxes in order to run the government. We don't all agree how the government's been running, and we think that it's obviously too large. But on the issue of gas tax, the real issue is how are we spending the monies that we're already collecting for that? Are they being efficiently spent? Are there monies elsewhere in the budget where we can tap into that to utilize it more efficiently towards the infrastructure? And, ultimately, I don't know the answer to that yet. I think it's one of the things that's a complicated issue, and there's a lot of details that you really have to dive into on a micro level to understand fully. Am I against raising a gas tax? Well, I'm kind of fundamentally against raising taxes in general because I think we already pay too much taxes. Mm-hmm. So, it's less of a question, should we raise the gas tax, and more of a question of, do we have sufficient revenues currently to maintain the infrastructure at the level that it needs to be maintained at? And if we do, we need to make sure we utilize those funds efficiently. Now, if we legitimately are not collecting enough revenue for that specific purpose, then we need to take a look at how we remedy that. Is raising the gas tax one of the tools in our toolbox? Sure it is. But I don't think it's the thing we should jump to first. There's so many other things that we can look at to make sure our infrastructure is taken care of. And obviously, for some people, it seems like an easy answer. Yeah. We always want an easy fix and a quick soundbite to say, I have taken care of this, whereas the complicated, issue's more complicated, and it's not really a yes or no answer.
We are a very quick society. We want quick information, quick fixes, and kind of the nature of the beast nowadays.
Right.
We talked about your district a little bit being extremely rural. Knoxville, really the only sizable community in that district. Your ability to represent agriculture. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, growing up in Iowa, it's hard not to be exposed to the farm, and my grandfather actually still maintains a farm just east of Knoxville. It's a farm that my dad grew up on, and I'd spend weeks during the summer working there, and I think that as we become more urbanized, I think the issue of agriculture becomes more convoluted to the general voter, because we are transitioning to more of a corporate environment, and that makes a lot of us less knowledgeable about agriculture and what goes into it. But I don't claim to be a farmer, and I don't claim to ever owned a farm.
Yeah.
But of course, I understand the importance that agriculture plays in the state of Iowa, and we want to see that we continue to dominate in that.
Jon, before we wrap up the interview, open it up. Anything else you'd like the voters, potential voters out there to know about you, or you want to speak to them about?
Well, really, how I differentiate myself from my opponent, and as we look forward to the campaign and the possibility of representing House District 28, is that what kind of person do you want filling the people's seat? Do you want somebody that's going to never negotiate, never compromise, an all-or-nothing candidate that will more often than not achieve nothing because of that approach? Or do you want a candidate that will work with the Republicans, caucus with them, consensus build, and achieve our small victories so that we can achieve our overall objective over a period of time? I think that the Democrats have been playing a long game, and the Republicans always seem to have a short game. And I think if we really want to accomplish our goals, we need to have a long game, and that's my objective.
All right. Well, you got a lot of irons in the pot right now with the business related and taking on this campaign. We wish you the best of luck, and looking forward to talking to you as we go through the campaign process.
All right, very well. Thank you for having me.
Been talking to Jon M, Republican candidate for House District number 28. I'm Randy Van, and that's this weekend's edition of Feature Scope.